I would say that the main thing that people misunderstand, and here I mean the general public, misunderstand about aging is the actual relationship between aging and the diseases of old age. And this, to be perfectly honest, is largely the fault of gerontologists. They're not nearly so bad at this now, but in decades past there was a very, very profound error of judgment on the part of the gerontological community to try to emphasize some kind of distinction between aging on the one hand and age-related disease on the other hand. People will actually go out and say all the time, aging is not a disease. That's not useful. Ultimately, it was very counterproductive. What happened was that people would think to themselves, well, okay, that means aging is this natural thing that is never going to be amenable to medical intervention because it's not a disease. Plus also, if it's not a disease, why should we care about it? So it was absolutely the wrong thing to be saying. And it was even more the wrong thing to be saying because it's not even true. The fact is, whether aging is a disease or not is just a matter of terminology. It depends what you mean by the word disease. But what we can certainly say is that aging is the set of collective precursors of the diseases of old age. That the diseases of old age are diseases of old age because they are aspects of the later stages of a process that goes on throughout life, a process of gradual and initially harmless changes to the molecular and cellular structure and composition of the body. That's what aging is. So the actual relationship between aging and age-related disease is something that's not remotely controversial in the field. Everyone understands it, but it's been completely confused in the public eye, and that's something that I spend an enormous amount of my time fixing. It's quite clear to me that aging is the world's biggest problem by an enormous distance. In terms of just sheer number of deaths, about 2/3 of all deaths worldwide are from aging. That means basically 100,000 people a day out of the total of 150,000 or so that die of all causes added together. In the industrialized world, it's much bigger than that. It's something like 90% of all deaths caused by aging. So, of course, it's the world's biggest problem. And of course, it's actually even bigger than that, because it's not just the deaths we're talking about here, it's all the extraordinary, astronomical amount of suffering that goes on. Most people who die over the age of 80 or so only do so after a significant period of decrepitude and disease and disability and general misery, and clearly we should be doing something about that. I think people do understand that the specific diseases of old age, the things that doctors have taken the trouble to give names to, are actually just like regular diseases. They cause suffering and we ought to do something about them. People understand that elderly people with Alzheimer's disease suffer, and that elderly people with cardiovascular disease or diabetes or cancer, they also suffer. But when we talk about the word aging, people somehow compartmentalize that differently. They think of aging as the thing that happens when you don't get these diseases, which is nonsensical. Of course, aging is part and parcel of those diseases, or otherwise those diseases would not predominantly be affecting people who were born a long time ago. The number of people that die each day from all causes added together is about 150,000 worldwide. About 2/3 of those people, so about 100,000, die of age-related causes, causes that predominantly affect older people and do not significantly affect young adults. So if we were to eliminate aging, then we essentially save all those people. We save all of those lives. We keep people in the same state of health that they were at the age of 20 or 30, and therefore in the same state of likelihood of death. And that's a hell of a lot of life saving. So sometimes I point out that, people got quite upset when 3,000 people died on 9/11. But actually, we're talking about 30 times that number each day. The tsunami that happened that hit Indonesia a couple of years ago killed about the same number of people that 2 days of aging kills. It's just astronomical. So astronomical that perhaps it's something that people just can't get their head around, and the only way that they manage to put it out of their minds is by somehow being irrational and making their peace with all of this terrible thing. But ultimately we've got to grow up and not do that. We've got to fix this problem as soon as possible.